Define the conversations. Make sure you're communicating urgency, but not being it's all blown up, because that's the kind of thing they don't want to hear. You don't want to go like, oh, it's all crazy, everything is going to ashes. But you want to communicate the reality of the situation without over exaggerating what's going on, right? So let's look at the first phase of navigating this. My goal with this is just to provide you today with a mental playbook, how to navigate this type of situations, a tactical process, to remain calm, to diagnose effectively, and hopefully manage the crisis well, manage it better. Structured response that's necessary to minimize any downtime regardless of the problem. So the first one is the immediate triage. Don't start fixing, start with assessment. There is that urgency, there's almost that impulse that we have to jump to solving the problem, because we've seen one symptom, the other symptom. We don't do the analysis, we don't do proper investigation a lot of the time. Especially when you've been in an environment for a little while, you're familiar with some of the issues with specific servers, and so you want to jump into solving problems, and it might not be the best approach a lot of the time. It might pay you better to stop and do some analysis, do some investigation, right? Don't just go and say, oh, I know this, I'm very familiar with this server, I know what's going on. Whenever this happens, this is what to do. Maybe it's always good to do a little bit of investigation, see what's happening for real, and make a good call. Don't start fixing, without assessing. Assess the situation, look at the impact, look at who is affected, what aspects of the business, who do we need to communicate with, right? Do a proper triage, do a proper investigation, do a proper deep dive into the problem, regardless of urgency or quote unquote urgency. The outages happen. And that leads me to the second thing. You need to have your run book discipline. You already have, more than likely, good organizations that I've been part of always have some kind of, run book. A run book is just a step-by-step on how to handle certain situations, when they arise. Don't start fixing anything without properly assessing, right? Having that written, play-by-play documentation, is very important. It helps you so that you're not going into panic mode during an outage, which is inevitable. If you stay long enough in this line of work, you're going to deal with one of those outages where things just go crazy and you have to figure out a solution and do it fast. Have that run book discipline. And it helps with just making sure you're following your steps, you're following already established protocol. Don't just run to try to solve the problem because of the symptoms. Follow the steps that has already been documented. And then establish a crisis bridge if that's not already been done. Typically, there will be, most of the time, we get this calls through escalation. Maybe there's like if you work in certain companies that are larger in scale, they have an offshore team. And the offshore team may be based in India or some other place that's monitoring the environment, and they notify you that there's an outage, right? Or maybe there's a NOC, there's a third shift NOC that's monitoring. NOC is a network operations center, and they're monitoring, all of the patterns and behaviors across the network and the infrastructure for your organization. And they are typically another group that might be the ones calling and saying, hey, we're noticing certain behaviors from the database. Database is acting funny. We're getting this alert. Jump on the call. Or can you take a look? Once you get that notification, a lot of places, depending on how critical the server is, they already have a bridge established. A bridge is just a conference call. It's a conference line. Everybody jumps on it. Depending on the urgency. If that's not the case and you feel like there's a need to establish, that communication, go ahead and do it, but make sure there's, a communication channel already established promptly, right? It makes sure you're bringing and involving the people that need to know about what's going on. Loop them in. They might not see the communication till morning if it's happening by 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., right? But it's important that you enforce a communication lead. Get the right people in a call if that's required. Open an email thread, Slack channel, whatever it is, but make sure there's some level of communication established, like, hey, this is the current situation and this is what we're working on. In that way, you are not navigating the situation in isolation. It's super important.